Hello, Dr. Tyson. We just want to start this off by letting you know that we admire you and your work a lot. Obviously, it's incredibly important that you're a scientist and you're contributing to the world of science. But not only that, but you're contributing to bringing science to the forefront and to the public. So we seriously
Absolutely.
admire that. And your television series Cosmos that inspired us on our journey, and our tag for our YouTube channel is
The
"Science is
science one.
everywhere and in everything."
Hmm.
So that's what got us started.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your early shows, you guys began early on this, and that impressed me greatly because uh, I think the grown-ups are messing up the world, and it's time for kids to take over. So I'll do anything to help kids take over.
I,
So we have some
Okay,
really interesting questions that we would like to ask you, and we think our followers will be really interested to hear your input on it. So
sure,
let's
go
begin.
for it.
Sophie, you take the stage.
so, what do you think were some of the most pivotal discoveries throughout all of history? I mean, we have some thoughts on this. Like, for example, I think that in the medical field, penicillin was really groundbreaking because it increased life expectancy significantly. And in the astronomy, I believe Copernicus discovering that the sun was the center of the solar system. I feel like that really was changed people's perspective on the universe. So we were just wondering, what do you think? What do you think were really groundbreaking?
So there are two different paths there. One of them is what discoveries have been important for human survival, and even before Louis Pasteur, I think it was before, yeah, there's a fellow named Lister who explored the idea that maybe you should disinfect things before you use them. Okay, maybe we can't see the germ, we don't know what it is or what it wants to do, but if you clean it first, maybe that will thwart the spread of disease. And so that was foundationally important because it opened up an entire understanding of the sources and causes of many of the sources and causes of why we contract contagious diseases. So if you want to go into that realm, that's a great realm, and Pasteur comes in under that category. All right, there was like yet another way to rid your food stocks and your surfaces and things of disease. So I'd put that whole movement very high up on the list. I would say another one. So interesting thing about Copernicus, now that you mention it, is I don't think the world changed very much at the time. Did people say, "Oh my gosh, we're at the center. What are we gonna do?" Were people like jumping off buildings? Well, buildings weren't very tall back then, but I don't. I don't. When I look at culture back then, it was an important philosophical shift in our understanding of ourselves relative to the world. But it didn't put food on people's plates. It didn't. I think people still went to work. They still farmed their crops, and consider that even today a lot of our language is still pre-Copernican. We don't say, "Oh, what time does Earth rotate such that the sun appears over my local horizon?" No, we say, "What time does the sun rise?" We just put a verb next to the word sun and declaring that it is rising from our perspective. That is not post-Copernican, that is pre-Copernican. We talk about the stars rising, crossing the sky and setting. So the Copernican revolution did not change everything, and we still retain some geocentric vocabulary. I would say, by the way, it's easy also to want to think about, you have the urge to want to think about a singular discovery, but a lot of things happen slowly over maybe more than one generation, requiring many people to bring it to bring it into our culture. So I would say, while the printing press was quite singular in what it enabled people to do, there were books before the printing press, but monks and other people with a lot of time on their hands had to sit there and transcribe them. So if you got a book, someone handwrote every letter on the page. So books were not widespread. Information did not spread easily or quickly. So the printing press transformed that, and that was the movable type, okay? The modern, quote, modern printing press in the 15th century. I think the Chinese had movable type long before that, but it didn't influence the rest of the world the way the printing press did from Gutenberg. But I would say the smartphone, which is your generation, okay? Your generation, the smartphone, I think is the most significant thing ever invented, ever.
Oh,
When you now you can't point to a single person, right? So it's not, oh, I'm going to make a movie about that person, working alone at night, and maybe they're a little bit crazy. That makes for a better story. And then they in the morning, and here's the smartphone. No. So if you just look at the juxtaposition of science and technology and engineering into something as thin as this that you carry in your pocket, I think is extraordinary. It doesn't just enable you to call anyone anywhere in the world, but you have access to information that has been stored by the collective efforts of all of humans. So to me, I think that's the single greatest invention there ever was.
that's a great
Yeah.
way to look at it. And now that I think about it, in everyone's pockets is basically the entirety of human knowledge combined.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
Yes.
pretty crazy.
And that's
Yes,
never
and
been that's never been seen in human history before. It's really a groundbreaking invention.
Yes, access to all knowledge at your discretion, and and you can take photos.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, let's jump right into it. Yeah, as I said, this is my favorite question, my field of study, and I think it's the most important question in the upcoming years. It's artificial intelligence. So I understand, obviously, there's a bunch of potential dangers and a lot of uncertainties with AI, how it can go from artificial general intelligence to super intelligence in a matter of seconds if we ever are able to create it. And we wouldn't be able to comprehend how powerful such an artificial intelligence would be. But what are your thoughts on its potential applications, not only in helping humanity, but its potential dangers in harming humanity in the next few years?
Yeah, everyone I know who's like an expert on this fears the future of AI. So I don't fear the future of AI, but I can't claim myself to be an expert in it. So I don't know if I should be offering you my opinion, because it might soften your concerns about it, and then all of a sudden we wake up and AI becomes our overlords, and it's because you listen to me instead of the experts. But let me just give you my reasoning, and then you can fold it in with whatever else you've read or heard from people who are experts. Of course, general AI becoming super AI. The general AI turns itself into super AI because it has that capacity to learn and to grow exponentially. So therein is the concern. Have you ever called a company and they put you on hold, or there's a voice activated thing and they try to help you with a computer and it just never works, and it makes you angry and you just want to slam the phone down or slam on your smartphone, whatever you're holding, it is frustrating. And so here we are struggling with whether the voice automated system on the phone connecting you to a company can get your order correct. And here are people sitting here losing sleep over whether AI is going to rule the world. So here's how I look at it. There's what we fear and there's what would actually happen in practice, all right? Do you need the computer that you have driving your car, in a self-driving car? Do you need that same computer to make you a cup of coffee? No, I'm going to buy the AI coffee machine that makes the best coffee in the world. And I don't need that to do anything else other than that coffee machine. I really don't. Okay? I'm not thinking that way. I have tasks that I think can be improved by the application of clever computing, machine learning algorithms, and yeah, keep making me a better and better cup of coffee. I'm good with that. But I don't need you to drive my car, and I don't need you to fly my plane. Okay, so now I have a software that's going to fly a plane. Great. Today, computers fly planes. Humans practically can't fly planes anymore because of the control surfaces require many adjustments per second to maintain stability in your flight. When I was your age, the plane would be jiggly and the pilot's trying to control it. And right now, the control surfaces, next time you're in an airplane, if you fly, go out and look at the wing flaps, and they're constantly making these minor adjustments, like at all times. That's not a human being doing that. So, do I want the computer flying the airplane to be the same one that is going to choose my date in a dating service? I'm sorry. So all I'm saying is, like, really, is that someone's really going to try to do that? You can make much more money in these sort of tasked ways, and that's what all of the history of civilization has been. All right, when the automation of things is not the automation of everything. People imagined. Again, when I was way back when I was your age, automation was a big thing. So people imagined the future home. You'd walk in and everything would happen automatically. The lights would turn on, the oven would preheat, and all this. You know, we could do that, but we don't. Because, like, why? No, maybe I feel a little different that way, and I don't want to do exactly what it was programmed to do. And So I don't think this. Oh, we also have machines that can beat us at chess. Okay, that's a badass program that can beat us at chess and in Go, and another computer that beat us at Jeopardy. Oh my gosh, Jeopardy! Well, that computer can't know things that are not on the internet because its entire source of knowledge is the internet, and the internet is a really big source of knowledge. I'll give it to you, but it still can't know everything. Then this whole talk you didn't ask, but it's related, where you upload your brain to a jar, and then that's you, and you live forever. No, I don't think so. No, because the jar didn't. Then okay, I'm going to the beach now. The jar is still on the shelf. Okay, I go to the beach. I meet new people. I go to a restaurant. And you're still a jar. So at the moment we split, maybe we were the same, but every moment after that, I'm continuing to build life experience. And so I don't have the fear of the future of AI that so many other people do, just as a matter of practical concern.
That's a really interesting way to look at it, and you talking about like automation in the past, that kind of made me realize when I watched Back to the Future for the first time, it took
Back to the Future 1?
Back to the Future 1, yeah. It took place in 2015, I believe. And
No, that was Back to the Future 2.
Okay,
Get
that
your
was Back to the
straight,
Future.
dude. What are you talking to? Okay?
I'm not a film expert. My apologies.
Okay. So Back to the Future 2 took place in 2015, and I think I posted on my Facebook or somewhere an analysis of everything it had projected for that year when that date came. Okay, there's the date he went into the future. That date came and went. And that movie took place in 1989. It got a lot of things right, like thumbprint locks, and but a lot of things were just sort of crazy, fun future. No one really took it seriously. So, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
No, exactly along those lines. There are a lot of things that they kind of over predicted on because they don't really fill a necessity nowadays, like flying cars, for example. But
yeah, and another thing is that you overpredict flying cars because it takes a level of energy that we don't have access to. So a lot of future thought back in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and for the Back to the Future film series in the 80s, they imagined a future where they didn't consider that maybe energy would be more costly than what was exhibited. So with monorails, flying cars, motorized walkways, everything requires energy. And what they didn't get right was what got cheap in the future was not energy, but information. And for me, one of the funnier things in the film was Marty learns that Marty's kid? Yeah. No, Marty, his father, no. Yes, Marty.
time travel paradoxes.
Yeah. So Marty in the future, he gets fired from his job. And in 1989, the transfer of information via fax machine was a very modern concept, right? There were no attachments to emails. Most people didn't have emails. If you want to send a document, you fax it. Yeah, I got a fax machine. They imagined that in the future, you'd have multiple fax machines. You know, if you were a tricked out house and had a fax machine in 1989, the future you, and now 25 years later, 25 years later, would have multiple fax machines. So he gets fired, and the boss sends a "you're fired" fax, and it comes out in 3 different fax machines. So people generally over predict things that they think are trends, and they have no idea what comes out of left field that becomes the real force of change in what the future brings.
That's
Right.
very interesting. But yeah, that's an
Oh,
interesting
one other
way
thing.
to look at it.
I recommend, if you can find it, it might be on TV Land, go look at some old episodes of The Jetsons. Right? Cartoon. It was a primetime cartoon back in the 1960s. Didn't go for many seasons, but you get a window into how people were thinking of the future. And in it, okay, they had a maid. All right. So this is still the sort of sexist times of the 60s. So maids were female, housekeepers were female. And so it's a robot who is shaped like a human, slightly portly, and she's wearing, it's a she, and she's wearing a maid apron, and she goes around sort of cleaning things up. And so she's the automatic maid. Does your maid have to look human in order to be a maid? Maybe there are things in the house that take care of themselves. We have Roombas that sweep your floor. Does it look like a human? No, but it does that task very well. Again, this is the splitting of how you might allocate the computing powers of the future. And other films of the day, you'd have this robot. Like I, Robot was a movie, it was a book and then a movie with Will Smith. I, Robot, it was a robot that looked human. And I'm thinking, why is the human the ideal form for anything? It's not, all right? And you'd have a human, it was a robot and it would drive your car. Wait a minute. The car is a robot.
The car, yeah.
Okay? I don't need a human being taking up a seat who is a robot driving my car. Let the car do the damn thing. And it doesn't look human at all. It's software in the chips that are controlling all the fundamental elements of the drivetrain of the car.
I remember watching iRobot, seeing the automatic car with the robot driving it, thinking the exact same thing. Just give me the extra space
Yeah.
instead.
Yep.
This also is kind of related to this question, but we were talking a lot about energy or efficiency for the sake of saving energy nowadays, right? But in the future, do you think that sources of energy would be any different? Do you think that we could
Oh, yeah.
find more efficient sources of energy?
Oh, yeah. So you're thinking of efficiency today because energy is scarce and expensive. But if you're in an environment where energy is plentiful, there's no real need to be efficient unless there's some other cost to the environment for not being efficient. So let's imagine a future. Let's say someone actually develops carbon dioxide scrubbers from the atmosphere. And so they go to some place where there's a lot of air currents through it, and it just takes out the carbon dioxide that we're otherwise putting in the air from the burning of fossil fuels. If you can do that, and if it's successful, then it doesn't matter how much fossil fuels you burn. It just wouldn't matter because you remove it and bury it into the ground. So much of our sense of the world, from our moral positionings to our practical actions, are shaped by what is free, what isn't, what is costly, what has consequences, what does not, what has long-term consequences versus short-term consequences. If those equations change, then all bets are off. It just simply doesn't matter. So in the future, if we have very efficient solar collectors, there's no end of sunlight. Oh my gosh. I mean, the sunlight is everywhere. All right. Look how much sunlight is hitting the earth, not doing not a damn thing. In deserts, on rooftops, and we're saying we got to be efficient. We have to turn out the light, do this, meanwhile, sunlight is hitting the earth, and we're doing nothing. So I think our entire economy and our entire civilization needs to regroup and reassess how we're thinking about and using energy. I always thought we should heat the roads so that in the winter, because I live in a place where it snows, in the winter, the snow just simply melts. And you know how much money you would save on snow removal as well as health care costs for people who are in accidents who get to be hospitalized, have to be hospitalized, and the repair of automobiles that are in such accidents for having slid on ice. Okay? So, oh, by the way, Iceland does that. Oh my gosh. Why? Okay. Do they have access to the sun? No, they're pretty far north. Their solar exposure is low, but they're on top of what is basically a volcano. And so they brought in some geoengineers and they started putting pipes, heat exchangers heat, there's a word for it, not heat exchanger, where there's heat down there and you want to bring it up here and then you cycle it. They do that. All their roads are heated in the wintertime.
That's actually a really interesting idea.
And they only did that in like the last couple of decades. Before then, they were burning fossil fuels. And they said, why are we buying and importing fossil fuels when we're sitting on top of this huge energy source? So so you can completely transform an entire culture in a relatively short amount of time.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting, and we're running a little bit low on time, but you mentioned...
I'll give faster answers. Okay, go.
You mentioned the idea of using the sun's energy, and I think I watched a video recently. It's called, what was it called? A Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere, the idea of a Dyson sphere that harnesses the sun's nuclear energy, and that allows us to use that energy to power our everyday electronics, our households, etc.
Yeah, so that's named after Freeman Dyson. He was a physicist. Most of his career was at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. I was actually a friend. We were friends when I was at Princeton. And he's written books. He was a prolific guy, very smart, cut his teeth in the Second World War in the radar physics that was going on at the time. So he came up with the idea that if you're a civilization, then your ability to grow or to have power, however you want to measure power, is measured by how much energy you consume, your access to energy. If you look at all the, quote, great civilizations over history, they had extraordinary access to energy. And so it's not a surprise when you say Americans, we consume 4 times as much energy as the average other person in the world. And no, of course we do, because we're a hugely powerful nation. Okay, militaristically, economically, this sort of thing, and energy consumption correlates with that. So we should not be surprised by that fact, okay? The history of this exercise. So he said, here's the sun giving all this energy, and only a tiny little bit of it actually is intersecting Earth. Earth's cross-section to the total energy spent out by the sun is actually relatively, as much as it is on Earth, it's relatively small compared to what the sun is generating. Most of the sun's energy is going out into space, accomplishing nothing. So let's build a sphere around the sun with completely absorbing tiles and send all that energy to Earth. And oh my gosh, if we harness the energy of the sun, then no, I don't have to turn out the lights when I leave. Everything, you want to melt anything you want, melt it. You can use the energy in an inverse way and freeze things if you needed. We'd have complete control over everything going on Earth. But that's a Dyson sphere, and that's a future that we don't have access to. By the way, that's considered a Type 2 civilization, if you control the energy of your star. A Type 1 civilization controls the energy of your planet, which would be hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes. If you can control that, that's plenty of energy for our needs, okay? We're not there yet. We can't do that.
So what are we? We're a Type 0 civilization?
We are a Type 0 civilization. We're digging fossil fuels out of the ground and burning them, all the while disrupting the stability of Earth's climate.
All right. Let's finish this interview with a question that we ask all of our interviewees, and it's one of my favorite questions to ask.
Yes.
This is just a free question. So, what is your favorite concept, discovery, invention, phenomena, tool, anything in the scientific realm? You can name absolutely anything.
It's a pretty broad
Are those
question.
7 different questions or one question?
It's just one question. Just name anything in the scientific realm that amazes you or
you ready?
fascinates you. Go ahead.
Euler's equation.
Oh, that's e to the I pi minus 1, right?
I would say that again?
That's e to the I pi minus 1, right?
E to the I pi equals
Negative.
minus 1. Right. and just you know, imaginary number. It's got x, you know, it's got e in it. It's got pi in it. It's just so. It's like to have thought that up. And so, if I were to ever have a tattoo, of which I have none, I think that's what I would tattoo somewhere on my body. But what I might do is tattoo the entire equation. Once you see the full equation, you can see how you get, because it reduces to e to the I pi equals -1. So it's e to the I theta equals sine theta minus I cosine theta. I think that's, I might have my sine and cosines swap there, but that's the full expression. And what you then do is you take a Taylor expansion of the sine theta function and the cosine theta function and lay it all out, and terms start canceling. That's a beautiful thing. They just start canceling. And as they cancel, what's left over is simply -1. It's beautiful.
That is
Wow.
truly awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. We
Okay,
appreciate
guys,
your
we'll keep
time.
it going. Keep it going. Oh my
Thank you.
gosh.
We
I
appreciate
saw
you.
your earlier videos from like way back in 2016 or something, or whenever you all began this. And so just keep it going. There's a lot of science to be had, to be learned, to be shared. And that's exactly what you're doing. So keep up the good
Sure.
work.
Thank you so much. We
you.
appreciate your
Okay.
work and we appreciate your time.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Have a good
Bye.
one.